Alert, another first-time event for President Trump. The commander-in-chief has arrived for a visit to MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. President Trump will receive command briefings from both U.S. Central Command and U.S. Special Operations Command. He's then scheduled to have lunch with enlisted troops before making what is called an all-hands address to coalition representatives and senior U.S. commanders. We expect video of the president's lunch with armed service members, and when we get it, you will see it right here. We're also watching this, the showdown over President Trump's immigration order. The Justice Department has until 6 p.m. Eastern to file briefs in a lawsuit against President Donald Trump's temporary ban on refugees and travelers from 7 predominantly Muslim countries. And Mr. Trump has now leveled a blistering attack on the judge who halted his executive order. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. Here today, Sandra Smith, Meghan McCain, host of Kennedy on Fox Business Kennedy, and today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, the opinion page editor for the Washington Times, Charlie Hurt, is here to put a heart on us. And he's outnumbered. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Charlie.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, another light news Monday.
Yes.
What will we talk about?
It is incredible. Every day is like Christmas if you're in the news business now.
Yeah. Wow, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Glad you're here. Let's get to the news. We will begin with a case that could land in the hands of the U.S. Supreme Court. Attorneys for Washington State and Minnesota are arguing in briefs filed with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco that restoring the president's ban would, quote, unleash chaos again, end quote. But not before President Trump tore into the Seattle federal judge who issued a nationwide stay on his order. He tweeted this: "Just cannot believe a judge would put our country in such peril. If something happens, blame him and court system. People pouring in, bad." All this as Vice President Mike Pence says the judge got it all wrong and that the administration will do everything it can to restore the ban. Watch.
We believe the judge made the wrong decision. The Boston court made the right decision. We're going to continue to use all legal means at our disposal to stay that order and move forward to take the steps necessary to protect our country.
All right, let's flip the switch to the other side of the political aisle. Former Secretaries of State John Kerry and Madeleine Albright among the prominent Democrats from recent administrations who are calling on the appeals court to extend the stay, saying the ban, quote, could do long-term damage to our national security and foreign policy interests, endangering U.S. troops in the field and disrupting counterterrorism and national security partnerships. It will aid ISIL, that's what they call it, ISIL's propaganda effort, and serve its recruitment message by feeding into the narrative that the United States is at war with Islam. How so, Charlie Hurt?
Well, it boggles my mind because, of course, this is the argument that John Kerry and the Obama administration used for 8 years for basically not doing anything and or doing very little and not standing up as forcefully as I think obviously the American people want, because they, it's not like this ban just came out of nowhere. We did have a very long campaign about it, and people voted for President.
But to push back on that, it was rolled out in the middle of the night without consulting national security or the director of Homeland Security. So, yes, it was something you campaigned on, but the rollout was much shorter.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, this is sort of indicative of what the whole campaign has been like all along. Yeah, there were problems with the way it rolled out. It was not optimal, despite what somebody said. One of the administration officials said it was so excellent. It was, what did he say? Whatever he said about how great it was. But that's not really what we're arguing about here. We're arguing about whether or not we should do this extreme vetting on these people. Maybe it takes them a little bit of time to get it right and to work out the details. But the question about whether the president has the authority to do this and whether it's a good idea, I think there's a very good argument.
All right, you know who's making that argument is the White House. The White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, had this to say. Let's watch.
The law is very clear that the president has broad powers to keep this country safe and to limit access to people that could come into this country and do us harm. He utilized that power in a very legal, constitutional manner to ensure that we are safe. Our people are safe, our country are safe, our institutions are safe. And it's somewhat sad to see a judge go rogue like this.
Well, the facts are that they went past a midnight deadline on one side to say why they need to put it back in place, the president's executive order. Then 6 p.m., the other side argues why they need to keep banning the president's ban.
Well, you've heard from Sean Spicer. He has stepped up to the podium multiple times at the White House press briefing and said that this rollout did go well. He's one of them who has been saying it, those words coming from the White House. But go back to Vice President Mike Pence, saying under statutory law and under the Constitution, the authority belongs to the president. He is adamantly defending this move. He then has also said from the outset of his campaign and administration, the president of the United States has made it clear to put the safety of the American people first. Going back to your point, and your point taken as well, Megan, he made this very clear during the campaign process that this would happen if he was elected.
And I don't understand with this judge in Washington. I don't understand what standing really Washington State has here. But basically, the argument that the judge is making is that basically the standing they have is that this hurts their feelings, and that's just not. I mean,
and that's part of the problem, because the burden of proof now is on the plaintiffs to show that they've been harmed. And Judge Napolitano here at Fox News and other legal experts I've spoken with look at this and they say, well, no, actually, it really doesn't yet. Nothing had happened yet, and that they fully expect the stay to be wiped away. But you talked about the origin of where people's angst is, and that still is part of the equation, because we still had protesting over the weekend at airports.
We talk about this on the couch a lot. I mean, I still think the Trump administration as a general whole could use some help just with their political narrative in general. It's a Muslim ban on the campaign trail, and then Sean Spicer is in your face saying it's not a ban, it's not a ban, offended at the idea that you're using the same language that Donald Trump both tweeted about and said on the campaign trail. So there's a lot of confusion. I'm all for keeping our borders safe. I'm all for strict vetting. I don't necessarily have a problem with any of this, other than the 7 countries he's talking about no terrorists have come from in the past, I believe, 10 years. The problem is no one understands what this is. When the American public sees translators who served alongside people like my brother in Iraq, you get concerned about what exactly this means. Green card holders who have already been vetted. There's a lot of confusion here. I just want the president to come on television and explain exactly what this is and why we should apparently all remain calm.
So it's interesting, Kennedy, because what Megan is saying is where a lot of leaders on both sides of the political aisle are right now. It's just, can you just make it clear? We saw the president tweeting yesterday that he was calling on Homeland Security to shore this up, because this is making us more dangerous, this gap between his executive order and what a judge has said, no, let's stop that until we can review.
Well, and it's also an exhausting continuation of the process we saw in the Obama administration, particularly on immigration, because President Obama, of course, would sign these executive orders, and then he would be rebuffed by the court system all the way up to the Supreme Court. So does that mean that every order that this president signs, every action he takes, is going to find its way to the highest court in the land? I mean, what an exhausting process. But also, you know, you talk about the confusion, and there should have been a lot more foresight here to head off that confusion, because what it does is it hands your enemies a can of kerosene to pour on the fire, which has already turned into an explosion. So every time there's a misstep like this, it halts the entire process, and it gets us away from what people ultimately want, which is they want fewer terrorist attacks. They want fewer people in this country who want to do us harm, but we still have not found the best system for doing just that.
So that brings me to my next question for you, Charlie. So with all of that laid out from Kennedy, is there room in what the president put together in that executive order for keeping us safe without all of the, you know, the second guessing and the drama around it?
I think absolutely, and I think that I mean, there's no doubt.
So does it need to be changed? What needs to happen? I mean, I get the explain it better part.
Is it a ban? Just how about get that narrative straight?
The president said, call it whatever you want. Was his response.
It's a pause in immigration from certain countries and refugees.
Until they put into place, and I do hope they are doing this, until they put into place stricter measures to make sure that the wrong people aren't getting here. But one thing, going back to what Kennedy said, I can't help but think, obviously this has been a messy rollout, and we don't know, and a lot of it is the administration's fault.
Why would the president say that?
But because he never admits anything. He doesn't apologize.
Or do you think maybe he just sees it differently? Maybe this was calculated, baked in, that nobody would be happy about this.
I think one part of that,
except for those who voted for him,
is the fact that he thrives in mayhem. And he does it, and he uses it to his
advantage. Okay, so going back to that point, Charlie, going back to his tweet, if something happens, blame him, referring to the judge, and court system, people pouring in bad. What do you make of the President of the United States saying blame a judge if something horrible happens?
It's hardball, and he's done it with the press all along, and I'm not surprised to see him doing that with the judge, but he has a way of he plays hardball, and he makes he draws clear lines. But part of the thing about the mayhem, like everybody freaks out about Mexico's not going to pay for the wall. Well, as long as we're talking about paying for the wall, we're not talking about whether or not we're going to build the wall. He wins that argument by having
well,
the
DHS Secretary John Kelly just went to the border, and that's who's really tasked with the construction of that. So he's already deployed somebody to do that.
Okay, but no, but also, I mean, this is like a theoretical wall. This is something, and again, it's using executive action to make good on campaign promises, which is very alluring for every new administration. But I look at this.
The political capital that is being blown right now blows my mind. I mean, I just can't get, again, I understand he's a businessman. I understand he's anti-Washington. I understand it's draining the swamp, but to have just a few people that could help him with his rollout and his messaging right now would make a lot of people a lot happier.
Do we blame the FBI? You talk about whether or not it's appropriate to blame a judge, but it would have to specifically be someone from one of those 7 countries who came in within the last 2.5 weeks, and violated our rights by committing some sort of horrific terrorist attack. But also, do you blame the FBI for the terrorist attacks in San Bernardino, Orlando, and Ohio State when all 3 of those suspects slipped their grasp?
Interesting.
Well, one thing that has been overlooked about that, and I know people love to say, the judge said this, about how no terrorist attacks have occurred by people from countries from these places. Well, that doesn't include all the people that have been arrested and charged with crimes. People have been stopped from that came from some of those countries.
Okay, we'll move on. Whew. Lots of fire today. Another major showdown looming on Capitol Hill over the potential confirmation of Betsy DeVos as Education Secretary. I might need a little education to say that word. Whether Republicans can force her and other nominees through, and the precedent they could set in doing so. And Supreme Court pick Neil Gorsuch, the judge, meets with Democrats this week as people on the left are still trying to decide how hard to fight his nomination, whether the GOP will end up having to go nuclear with an option to push him through. And we're going to make more Outnumbered when the TV version of us wraps up. We pop up online, foxnews.com/outnumbered. Notice I switched the direction of my slash to match what you see. Tap on Overtime. Go to facebook.com/outnumberedfnc for us Facebook Live. And, of course, you can tweet us anytime you want, Birdie Birdie. Tweet, tweet. We're coming right back.
History could be made this week in Congress where a confirmation showdown is looming. The Senate getting ready to take a final vote on Betsy DeVos for Education Secretary tomorrow. And with 2 Republicans saying they'll join Democrats in opposing the school choice advocate, Vice President Mike Pence may have to break a tie. It would be the first time that has ever happened. After the DeVos vote, Republicans will spend the rest of the week trying to push through the nominations of Attorney General nominee Jeff Sessions, Health Secretary nominee Tom Price, and Treasury Secretary nominee Steve Mnuchin. President Trump still has just 4 cabinet members confirmed. And going back to Betsy DeVos, Charlie, those 2 GOP senators, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, are the 2 that announced that they would vote against her. All right, so he's got 4 confirmed. Where do things go now?
Well, obviously with Betsy DeVos, those Republicans really gave Democrats a lot of cover to oppose her. But Democrats have a much bigger question about how many of these do they want to drag out and how many of these want to block. And with the nomination of Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court adds a lot of pressure to all that, because that's the thing that really matters to them. And really just, but I do think it's kind of funny, as somebody who isn't a big fan of the size of the federal government, not having, has anyone noticed that we don't have these secretaries in place?
I think people notice because we keep telling them.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that what they're waiting for is for their lives
you could
to start
eliminate
to
several of these departments, and it would be 2 years before most average Americans would ever realize, except we would be talking about it.
Music to my ears, Charlie.
Yes.
Absolutely love it. But I think you're absolutely right. And people didn't realize that until they heard the name Sally Yates again.
Yeah.
And they went, oh, really? There's an acting Attorney General? Oh, is there an acting Secretary of State?
And now she's fired, so now everybody knows her.
Yeah.
So I would say this just really quickly. If the vote count stays the same with the 2 who are out, then, the Vice President steps up as the President of the Senate and he votes. But if they lose one more Republican, what happens? They're in trouble.
And one way to lose a Republican is if Jeff Sessions gets confirmed for AG, then then you lose.
Oh, interesting.
Then they
Do you think they play dominoes like that on the Hill?
Oh,
yes.
my goodness.
Absolutely.
I got a 5, let me block your 10.
No, that's why, and that's a big talking point for Democrats right now is, well, why don't you just go ahead and confirm Jeff Sessions if he's so important?
I got 10, you got 15.
Your AG, and then you won't have that extra vote in the Senate.
It just does seem like they're not picking their battles here. It's just everyone. They're going.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't pretend to understand what the Democrats are doing right now, but it's amazing to me that every nominee for anything is the end of the world. They're all Hitler. They're all the worst choices ever. Betsy DeVos is being, it's true, Betsy DeVos is being attacked for being successful and coming from a wealthy family. Steve Mnuchin is being attacked for being successful. This is one thing I will give the Trump administration all day long. It's good to have people in positions of power who know how business works, especially when it comes to things like the Department of Education and being Secretary of the Treasury. But the narrative about surrounding these people, they're not even giving them a chance. They're not even looking at their resume, and I can't believe just how dystopian the rhetoric is, especially regarding Betsy DeVos, who was parodied on Saturday Night Live this weekend. Like she's like, it's just some random person they brought in, not someone with all these people have incredible resumes, incredible backgrounds, but simply because they're conservative and working for this administration, you're going to press the panic button. It's stupid.
Fair to say, based on what we have seen so far, for confirmed Charlie, that Democrats are successful in their efforts to slow down this process?
Well, sure they are right now, but we haven't had another election. And as we see with Donald Trump talking about the judge out in Washington, he's going to make an issue out of it, and he's going to make an issue out of it in future elections in the states where a lot of these senators are from, and they very well could wind up paying.
But I'm like, Democrats, say something nice about anyone. Say something nice about anyone who's being appointed.
Betsy DeVos, and it's where the two Republicans say that they fall down on her. It's just that her background does not match up with the public school system.
And
but
then
it's because she's for charter schools.
Yeah,
let's call a spade a spade.
There are a lot of charter public schools, and there's a lot of misinformation by Democrats and the left that somehow charter schools are all for profit and they're all private schools, and that is not the case, particularly in some of the biggest school districts
Dallas, Texas.
in the country. And you know,
New York City.
Yeah,
I mean,
LAUSD has a number of very successful charter schools that work in concert with the second biggest district in the country. But back to your point about the Supreme Court picks, are they going to bork every single nominee that the president puts forth? And, you know, that's a big question for a lot of these Democratic senators who are running for re-election in 2 years in states where Donald Trump won.
You heard it here first. Kennedy, are they going to bork them? All of them. All right, Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch is meeting with a slew of Republicans and Democrats this week, including California Senator Dianne Feinstein this afternoon, as Democrats continue to debate how hard to fight the president's pick for the high court. This, as Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is not ruling out getting Gorsuch confirmed using the, quote, nuclear option, which throws out the rule of requiring 60 votes.
I would say that is up to our Democratic friends. Any one senator can require the entire Senate to cast 60 votes to stop a filibuster and move to what we call an up or down vote, a simple majority vote on a nominee. So any one senator could make us get 60 votes.
Meantime, a new CNN ORC poll shows Americans' first impressions of Gorsuch tilt positive. 49% say the Senate should vote him thoroughly, roughly the same who supported Justices Samuel Alito in 2005 and Sonia Sotomayor in 2009. So you see it right there. The proof is in the polling right there that there's a lot of support behind him. I can't find anything you wouldn't. I don't understand why there's any problems with putting him through other than he's conservative.
Yeah, and especially when you have these people talking about how your life will be in danger if this guy gets on the court, or your children are going to die, or everyone's going to have bad water if this guy gets on the court, which is patently absurd. But people like Nancy Pelosi are actually saying
we already have that. Look at Flint, Michigan.
Exactly. Well, and that was one of the things they said. The whole place will become like Flint, Michigan. It's absurd.
But it's this dystopian rhetoric that they're using about every single. It's like the Armageddon's coming.
Yeah. But they had no problem unanimously confirming him to the federal bench, which is very curious.
Yeah.
And the thing that I don't understand, particularly with some of these Democratic senators, back to that old group, good job, Chuck, is, you know, they have such a problem with him, but this is actually a federal judge who has put a lot of time, effort, and good writing into checking the executive branch. Isn't that the ultimate goal, the ultimate dream of these Democratic senators, is to find someone who will come up in his jurisprudence against the president?
That used to be what liberals were. They were suspicious suspicious of big government. They were suspicious of an all-encompassing, powerful force.
Well, that was because they were advocating for lower and middle classes, and we saw that they lost their direction previous to November 8th.
Yeah.
But I would say this. I talked with a former young clerk for Judge Gorsuch, who also worked for the late Antonin Scalia, and he said Gorsuch is important in the role that they want to put him in right now because he's got the personality that kind of matches up what the court needs. And if they inherit an issue like this executive order, he said that, you know, on immigration, if that stays around long enough, because right now you've got 4 and 4, if he would be the tiebreak on the judges panel, it would be interesting because he said he would take it into account every single detail and not be partisan in such a way that people might find predictable.
So the poll actually did look into what is the biggest problem, those that do have a problem with Gorsuch, what is it? And it is, to your point, about him being conservative. About a third, 34%, say they think Gorsuch would be too conservative, and that is higher than the share who said that of other successful GOP nominees. Alito, 29%, John Roberts, 24%, Clarence Thomas, 20%.
Which is funny because of those three, I'd say Clarence Thomas is clearly the more conservative. He's definitely better on free speech.
And for 15 years, we've heard all this talk about the importance of keeping balance on the court. You replace a justice with a similar justice. I don't happen to agree with that because I think that there shouldn't be a conservative or liberal justices. They're just exactly. It's applying the law. But who has been making that argument for 15 years? Chuck Schumer. So if you're going to replace Justice Scalia according to his flawed argument, then you absolutely you not only should you, there's nobody else you should put in that place.
Well, this, according to that, and that logic from Senator Schumer, Gorsuch might not be conservative enough.
Exactly. Exactly.
He's the rightful heir to Scalia. I think it's universally accepted. All right, President Trump is blaming, quote, Obama people for leaking transcripts of his phone calls with foreign leaders. Whether those leaks are putting our national security in danger. Plus, several Super Bowl ads sparking controversy after appearing to take swipes at President Trump. Whether politics should stay out of the big game.
President Trump speaking out about those leaked transcripts of his phone calls with leaders of Australia and Mexico. He says, quote, Obama people gave news organizations details of his tense talks. Mr. Trump says his administration is searching for the leakers and that any Obama holdovers serving on his White House and national security staff are being replaced. The president saying this to Fox News about the transcripts. It's a disgrace that they leaked because it's very much against our country. It's a very dangerous thing for this country. Charlie Hurt, he has been addressing this for some time, initially saying, hey, I have to have these very tough, serious conversations. To have them leaked, what do you make of his response?
Well, I mean, I know that some people, partisans, are trying to say, well, it has to be somebody within the administration. It's got to be some of the infighting going on in the White House. There is no evidence of that, and I also find it very hard to believe. But I do think that, I mean, it's I think one of the more appealing things that is going on right now is that you have bureaucrats all around Washington going crazy. They're losing their minds, and
you like that.
I love it, and I think, I mean, I don't know where the leaks are coming from either, but the State Department does coordinate these phone calls. They're the first. That's the first place I initially figured that the leaks were coming from. But bureaucrats, jumping around with their hair on fire in Washington.
And
great.
One of those conversations was with the Mexican president, and Donald Trump did talk about this very good relationship that they have. Let's listen to it.
We have to do something about the cartels. I did talk to him about it. I want to help him with it. I think he's a very good man. We have a very good relationship, as you probably know. He seemed very willing to get help from us because he has got a problem.
Got a problem.
And it's a real problem for us.
Megan?
Well, I mean, going off of the leakers, I mean, he's obviously going to say something different on television than what is alleged in some of these things coming out. My take on this is that it's a classic case of when you have a campaign of a small group of loyalists you keep around you, ride or die. I respect that. I think it's part of the reason why he actually got elected president. But being president, you can't do it with such a small group of people. If I were him, I would smoke these people out immediately, find them, get rid of them. Leakers are cancers. They will hurt them. They will hurt their candidate. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. They should be fired immediately. I think if you join the administration, and I actually would point to probably people maybe working in the RNC that maybe don't ideologically, if I had to guess. I have no proof of that. And if you're going to work for this administration and you're going to team up with the principal, you have to back it 100%. And if you have problems with it, leave.
Is that the way to go? Just get him out of there, Kennedy?
Yeah, operate by total paranoia. That's great. Let's go back to a Nixonian era. No, I think again we're in a postmodern world, and I think there's so many people who have incentive to get into the White House, to get into the RNC, to serve their various other masters, which, you know, unfortunately for the president, are not this administration, because you have people in both parties who have no idea what's going on. There's so much chaos, and they are not necessarily loyal to this president.
I'm sorry, they're not being paranoid if there's leaks. There are leak problems they have right now. It's not paranoia. It's happening.
Yeah, but
so I don't think they're
paranoid. If you think that every single person is capable of leaking something, are you going to fire everyone?
I don't think it's every single person. I think they have a leak problem, and it seems like President Trump knows where they're coming from. And I think if you're working for a principal candidate, I'm not talking about the media. I'm not talking about people at different positions in different stations. I'm talking about if you're working in the White House under a principal, you should support him or her 100%, and you shouldn't be leaking things out to the media. It's what causes a lot of problems, a lot of stripes, a lot of chaos. And I don't necessarily think all the blame
there are a lot of people who don't necessarily adhere to that brand of thinking, and they do have a hacker mentality. They're out for themselves. They know that there's money to be made. There is favor to be curried by giving the sort of information, and even the press is surprised.
Real quick, I just want to say something about those people who feel like the leaks are serving us by some greater purpose, because they call these people whistleblowers. And so I looked up the actual definition of a whistleblower. It's somebody who has or reports insider knowledge of illegal activities. Having or not having a terse conversation with the leader of Australia is not an illegal activity. So, I mean, I see kind of a heroism complex that people are trying to make about these leaks. They're untenable.
But
they
you
can
kind
be
of said
dangerous,
that, Charlie, by saying
the topic is about.
That this is causing chaos in Washington, and you love it.
Yeah, and I also don't think it actually really hurts Donald Trump all that much. I mean, the guy thrives.
What if they leak something about how he protects himself in the White House?
Well, no, that would be an entirely, to me, a different thing. That would be that's national security. But in terms of, you know, I mean, is it really that much of a newsflash that he is having brusque conversations with foreign leaders?
With Australia, yes. Yes, with Australia, it was very surprising for a lot of people.
Apparently it was, because it led like all the news, for a day.
Well, that's
for a minute in this news cycle.
People can't get enough of this stuff, but I don't think most people really care that much.
I think I think people care a lot, and I think these leaks are, as you know, dominating the narrative on many news organizations and news cycles. And again, maybe there are people on the couch that think it's good. I think it's hurting.
I don't think it's necessarily good. I just think it's the way it is. I think we are in a different world. This is a brave new world, some would say, but we haven't seen not only an administration like this, but a reaction to it, people on the inside and the outside.
So your comment was that it was paranoid. It's happening. It's not. I mean, what's the old adage? You're not crazy if they're after you. I mean, you're saying that he's being paranoid. He's not being paranoid. They have a leak problem in the White House right now,
which will feed into paranoia.
Healthy disagreement on the couch right now. You're not the only one outnumbered right now.
Hey, there you go.
All right, catch more of Bill O'Reilly's exclusive interview with President Trump tonight and tomorrow night on The Factor at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Fox News channel.
But House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi pushed back, saying Democratic policies implemented under President Obama are working for the American people. Watch.
It wasn't about what we have done, it's how we did not message it. And that is
no, but she said no. She actually said the opposite. It's not about a new set of talking points.
No,
it's actually about policies that aren't working for those folks.
Well, but they have. Let's see the record. The record is that what did we do?
That's a bunch crazy. Pelosi also rebuffing Senator Warren's suggestion that the party needs new leadership, insisting what Democrats actually need is experience. Charlie, I guess denial is not just a river in Egypt.
No, it is not.
It's amazing.
You know how you know your party is in huge trouble? Is that two of your most visible leaders are Elizabeth Warren and Nancy Pelosi. But I think Elizabeth Warren, and both of them they're great for the Republican Party. I think that they should stick around for as long as possible. But the last 8 years have been devastating for the Democratic Party, and that's been sort of obscured by the fact that President Obama won re-election in 2012. But now, in hindsight, and we look at all the seats that Democrats have lost, Obama was the only one that has made out over the past 8 years, and I think that we are very far from the bottom yet.
But what an insult to people. And this is the thing that I can't get over.
Yeah.
Your family is hurting. You can't save money. College is too expensive. Your house is underwater. And the problem is messaging. Yeah. The problem is someone didn't tell you that you're not in bad shape. Yeah. So therefore, it's supposed to make your problems go away. It's like going to the emergency room with third-degree burns and the nurse, the triage nurse telling you, you know what, honey, you just need a little bit of Neosporin and a Band-Aid because everything we've done here is so perfect and wonderful and you're knit together so beautifully that nothing is wrong with you. Bye. Nancy Pelosi is just trying to hold on to power with those bony crypt fingers until she retires. That's all she wants.
You know, it's actually worse than that, because when you talk about the two people who are front and center, where the heck is Bernie Sanders? Because he actually could deliver the demographics that the Democrats are looking for. But to on point with what you're saying, a reality-based example was that town hall that Nancy Pelosi did last week, when that mom whose son had been tortured and set on fire by a known criminal illegal, and Pelosi said, no, but the policies are working. I can't imagine how you feel, but the policies are working. I'm paring it down, but that was the message. It isn't just the messaging.
And the other part about the other thing that's insulting about saying it's the messaging, it's also like what she's saying is, voters, you just didn't listen. You should have listened to us.
And they're the ones not listening. I mean, didn't they go wrong the moment Tim Ryan was in contention and it's still Nancy Pelosi is in power? But I was looking through Elizabeth Warren's tweets, and it's really interesting. She said, our country is in crisis, but that crisis didn't begin with the election of Donald Trump. Our country is in crisis because for years Washington has worked great for the rich and powerful, but it hasn't worked for anyone else. Isn't she kind of taking a page out of the Donald Trump playbook?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. But it's also, it is out of the Bernie Sanders playbook.
Absolutely.
And I've said this before, Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders emerged side by side because the policies of the left and the policies of the Obama administration were not working. And this didn't just start the moment that Donald Trump declared his presidency. It started long before that.
Yep. But that's rehashing of the past, and this is about where they go in the future. And I've been fascinated all weekend about Chelsea Clinton tweeting and getting into tweeting fights with Kellyanne Conway. I think we actually have one of her tweets. And the fact that she was so neutered during her mother's campaign, now all of a sudden she's an attack dog. I don't buy it. And I don't understand why there's already pieces being written in the Washington Post about her growth and that she's finally found her political voice. So the Democratic Party thinks the Clintons
here it is.
are the next generation. We have it right here.
Let's put that up.
I guess.
So she said.
She says, very grateful no one seriously hurt in the Louvre attack or the completely fake Bowling Green massacre. Please don't make up attacks. That wasn't the only one. There were quite a few. And again, there's think pieces already being written about where her political voice is. And if you think you're going to hitch your wagon to the Clintons, especially this one.
So my question,
I mean, actually go for it. It's
Clinton or any of them would be, did you not hear what America said on November 8th? And don't you have anything else in your bag of quivers to hit the target?
Yeah. No, Tim Carney had a really funny retort to that tweet. He said, hope you and your mom survived that gunfire in Bosnia.
I saw that one. Yeah. It's been kind of a family hour here, right? Your daughter is here. My father is here for the first time. Hi. The Colonel's here watching Outnumbered, and your daughter, who's the oldest of your three.
Yes, one lucky dad.
Aww.
Well, indeed. America already loves you.
She's so smart.
And even more.
And now you have more stock, as Megan said. How about that?
Very good.
Have you had fun hour?
Oh, I always have fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
I did have a second cup of coffee during the show today because it was a late night. It was a fun game last night.
Did you call it for the Pats?
No.
That was
you didn't. I didn't know you called it for the Falcons.
No, I kind of wanted the Falcons to win. Yeah. Dare I say that? Our control room is like all Patriots.
They are
good.
Boston, guys. They're up there.
Awesome game. Tom Brady is obviously.
Wow. Well, thanks for standing out on that lonely limb with me.
Oh my gosh.
I was out there clinging to the tree.
Tom Brady's afraid of
in
potatoes.
that commercial last night.
I don't
Did you see her? Melissa McCarthy when the lumber went.
Tomatoes, potatoes, any nightshade vegetables. Tom Brady's diet is suspect.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, well, we'll see you online. We'll talk about that. FoxNews.com/outnumbered. Click on the overtime tab. Now happening now.
Oh, Lord.